Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the 2023 Volkswagen ID.4 because it's receiving quite a few updates. So in today's video we're going to go over those updates, and then we're going to kind of get into my thoughts on the new version of the ID.4. And with all that being said, let's just hop right into the video. So the Volkswagen ID.4 is actually kind of receiving two separate sets of updates, some for the 2022 model year and then some for the 2023 model year. I figured I would just title this 2023 because it's the later model year. But anyways, the first big update that is happening with the ID.4 is that the price is going to slightly increase across the board by $765. So the rear-wheel drive version called the Pro model will be $41,955, and then the all-wheel drive Pro S will be $50,135. And then obviously the first edition is completely gone because that was just for the first model year, hence the name first edition. And the only differentiating factor between these two, other than the all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, is that the all-wheel drive version has another electric motor up front, and it gives it a little bit of extra horsepower. So the rear-wheel drive version has 201, and then the all-wheel drive version has 295. And so yeah, that's kind of like the differences with that. So basically we're getting the same cars for 22, but they just have a little bit of a higher cost associated with them. Now, the next thing that is going to be changing for 2022 is apparently they're going to slightly increase the range with both of the models. They have 240 and 260 miles of range right now. They haven't said exactly how they're going to increase the range or how much the range is going to increase by, but apparently they're going to slightly increase the range with both of the vehicles. And then also they're apparently going to make it so that the charge time is a little bit faster as well, so that it's a little bit more practical from that standpoint. So those are kind of like the main changes for the 2022 model years. Higher price, right? No more first edition because, right, that was for the first year. And then we're going to have the same power outputs, and then a little bit more range, and then faster charging, which should all be pretty good. Now for 2023, this is the pretty interesting part. They're going to start building the ID.4 here in the US, and this is supposed to help with quite a few things. So it should help out with pricing, and so they might be able to lower pricing with all the models, since it won't have to be shipped from across the sea. And then on top of that, the other thing that they're talking about is actually switching out the manufacturer that they get their battery packs from. So the battery pack manufacturer they'd probably use here in the US is SKI rather than LG, and so that could change up things quite a bit. And obviously it's going, I mean, coming from a completely different company, that can change, you know, the range, reliability, all sorts of things with that. So that's pretty much what's happening there. And then the next big change for 2023 is that they are trying to release a less expensive version of the ID.4 that'll start at about $35,000. So it'll be, you know, about $6,000 less than the cheapest version of the ID.4, and that's kind of coming with this release of the release of ID.4s from the US rather than coming from Europe, which I think is pretty cool. Now let's get into my overall thoughts here on the 2022 and then 2023 Volkswagen ID.4. So as for the changes with 2022, the price increase is kind of expected, right? And it's not even a massive amount, especially compared to inflation over the last year or so. So I think that's all within reason. And then aside from that, the extra range, depending on how much it is, right, will determine how, you know, cool that changes, right? If it's like, oh, we're going from 240 to 300 miles of range and then 260 to like 320, then it's like, wow, that's great. But if it's like you get 10 extra miles of range, it's like, oh, cool. It's still great, but it's like not a big enough change to really, you know, make, I guess, a huge difference and make it worth it to upgrade your 21 to a 22. As for the faster charging, again, depending on how much time that actually saves with a full charge will determine if that's worth it or not. But I think it's great that they're making these small tweaks, and, you know, maybe this will be a year-to-year thing where they'll just slightly increase the range and the charging rate every single year. So I think that that's all good. As for the 2023 changes, I think building it in the US is really good, right? Because the first thing that's going to happen is, especially with all of these supply chain shortages and all the other issues we've been dealing with, if they have this car built in the US, that should help out with availability, right? Because they'll have a little bit more control over, you know, getting everything to the car and then getting the car delivered to customers, right? They won't have it sitting on a boat, sitting at port for months. So I think that that'll be a positive change, is having the ID.4s built here in the U.S. So I'm all about that. And then obviously, you know, bringing more jobs here to the U.S. market, I'm also all about that. And then the other thing with doing the cheaper model, I think that's really important, because right now, the thing that I've heard from a lot of people with the ID.4 is they feel like it's just a little bit too expensive, especially for what it is. Now, I'm not going to say I necessarily fully share that sentiment, because the ID.4 does feel very upscale with the interior, especially compared to like something like a Chevy Bolt. It definitely feels nicer, more upscale, so I kind of understand the increase in price. And it also has better driving dynamics, because, you know, you have the rear-wheel drive model, which has that rear-wheel drive feel, and then you have the all-wheel drive model, which would be more practical for places like here in Utah where we get snow for half the year, and you can't get that on like a Bolt, for example. So I think that it's great. I think the pricing where it stands right now with how upscale the car feels and the stuff that you get, I think it's reasonable. But having a cheaper model will definitely help out quite a bit. It will help out with more adoption, because right now, as of you know, the end of 2021, the average price of a brand new car is about $45,000. And so if their base model is a little bit less than that, and then they have, you know, a base model that's like $10,000 less than that, then that'll be great. So I think that will, again, that'll bring more buyers into it, and it'll make it more of like just a budget friendly car. And I'm okay if they strip the interior and they make it so that it's more like a baseline car on the interior, but you still get good range. And maybe they could do it both sides. Maybe they could have an all-wheel drive model that's the same price as the, you know, nicer upscale interior rear-wheel drive model, and have that somewhere in like the low $40,000 range. I don't know exactly if that makes sense from a cost perspective and marketing perspective, but maybe they could do that, right? Where you basically get the performance and the range, but you just get like the most gutted interior ever. I don't know if that'll work out for them, but I think that could be a good idea, and it would be a really, I mean, that would be pretty awesome, right? A, you know, SUV with all-wheel drive for around $40,000 that has at least 200 miles of range, fully electric. I think that would be great. But I want you guys to let me know what you think about the changes here coming with the ID.4, if it's a car that's even on your radar. And with all that being said, I will see all of you in that next video.